Hey, Fedheads. Welcome to another episode of Sharing Our Pairings. This is Sharing Our Pairings, episode 32, Drew Estate Unicos pairing. Today we'll be pairing the Dirty Rat because we are dirty beer drinkers. I'm your host, John the Cigar Surgeon. We're broadcast live on cigarfederation.com or on the Cigar Federation app available on Android or iOS, Apple OS. Please pick that up. Check it out on our website. Also can tune into YouTube, or of course, after the show airs live, which is right now, you can check it out on podcast, either on Apple or Android. Today we're going to be pairing some beers with some Dirty Rats, and I'm here with our co-host, as always, Robbie Rass. What is going on, brother?
What's happening, John? We're just melting down here in California, bro. It's I'm going to be honest with you, it's damn hot.
It's hot.
It's hot.
So hot.
Yeah, I think it was like 103 yesterday. And today it's a little bit cooler, but hot. yeah, it's been a little toasty. So a lot of staying indoors and things of that nature. But other than that, things are good. I'm pumped because we're smoking a great cigar. These Dirty Rats, man, they're same with any of the Unicos stuff. People go nuts for it, so it's hard to find. But when you do get your hands on them, you understand why people go nuts for these things. They're fantastic, fantastic little smokes. And a Dirty Rat, I mean, this one will smoke for about an hour.
Yep.
Tops. I mean, well, you could milk it a little bit if you want, but I think you could comfortably smoke it in about an hour, and there's a ton of flavor in there. I'm curious to see how it's going to pair with these beers that I've selected. It's funny, when we started talking about this show, I said, okay, great, we're going to smoke a Dirty Rat. I'm like, okay, well, I've got this Imperial Stout, and then I've got a chocolate stout.
Oh, and I think we just lost Rob. Oh, you're back. I think we're experiencing...
Did you lose me?
I lost you for a second. There we go. You're back.
Yeah, well, whatever. I was just saying that I had a bunch of stouts that I wanted to pair with it, and that was a big cop-out, so I decided to try to diversify with...
Sorry for the pause there. We're still encountering some slight technical issues.
Are you hearing anything from me?
I am. You were going along just fine, and then Google decided to, cut you out for like a 3-second pause there, which is always delightful.
That's all right. So anyway, I don't know how much of my little spiel you heard. Basically, I wanted to go all stouts and decided that was a cop-out. So, am I still getting jacked up here?
You are. You're a little blocky, but
I keep getting dropped off, I think. I don't know why.
I blame Google.
I do too. What the hell? They can't fight back, and their stock's doing just fine. All right, so I think we're clear. So let's move forward before it happens.
Roger that. Well, let me just say happy Canada Day, 148th Canada Day to all the Canadian listeners out there. As you can see, I've got my Canadian flag behind me. I'm a proud Canadian. Happy Canada Day. Dirty Rat. Talking about the Dirty Rat from Drew Estate. Came out in 2009. Blended in 2008, I think. Or no, came out in 2009. Or blended in 2009, came out in 2010, something like that. Blended by Nick Melillo with his time with Drew Estate. Comes in 12-count boxes, and it's Corona, which is, love Coronas, great size. 5x44, I think. Saka called it a fat Corona. I'm not sure why. Maybe he's used to 5x42 Coronas, but so originally they were trying to make a Corona Liga 9, and they're trying to do it with 5 fillers, which if you've ever done the blending seminar at Cigar Safari, you'd know that ain't happening.
It's almost impossible, yeah.
Yeah.
Or it is impossible.
It is impossible, yeah. I mean, you're talking 7 tobaccos. You get 5 fillers, a binder, and a wrapper. That's craziness. I mean, the bunch arrow hates your guts for bringing that to them. And they are rare. I mean, their MSRP is $12, but honestly, I don't think anyone cares because what it comes down to is your ability to pick them up. And usually, if anybody has them in stock, if they're online, I think they last about 15 seconds and they're sold out. It doesn't matter how many they get. Yeah.
And there's some places that that get them more regularly than others. I know the Sig Fed store gets them in every now and again. Some places that I've seen that get them often, Emerson's Cigars gets them in quite often. And there's another one. There's Emerson's and there's a Neptune. Neptune cigars. They both get them in pretty often. So those are places, and you can actually, I think, on every one of those, every one of those stores, which our show is not affiliated with any of them, you can go and click on something. If it's out of stock, you can get an email reminder, and they'll email you when it comes back in stock. So, or at least I know that Neptune does, because I get their email. I get their emails, and it's one of those things where they pop up, and it's, I want to get a box of them, but it's $150 or whatever for 10 or 12 cigars, and then it's like you can't really think about it. You've got to be impulse buy, bam, do it, because otherwise it's gone. Yeah,
you have to put it in your cart, and you have to be in the checkout process when that notification comes in, because otherwise you are not getting. Period.
Yeah.
And honestly, until a couple years ago, the only Unicos I had was from going on the Cigar Safari. Like, I literally could not pick up Unicos. It was impossible. It was only from the Cigar Safari, and it was only, I think, in 2012 maybe or 2013 when I went down to Orlando, and I went to Corona Cigars there, that I managed to actually snap up some Unicos, and I was super happy.
You know, I think this is actually the Dirty Rat that they gave us this year on the Cigar Federation Cigar Safari trip. Or at least on this trip, my trip in the past, they didn't necessarily do this, but every day there was a special cigar, and we would get it. I think we got the first one was kind of early in the day, but the rest of them would all happen after dinner. And it was, one day it was Pharaoh Flying Pigs, and then another day it was the L40, Dirty Rat, and I think we got Ratzillas as well. And I didn't smoke those. I brought them all home with me. Although one guy had never, who was it that had never had a Unico before? It was Jimmy, Fast Jimmy.
Fast Jimmy.
And I gave him my my FFP, because I've got a few, so I figured, what the hell, if you could take it. But yeah, just another reason to go on Cigar Safari, man. They take care of you on those trips. But yeah, I'm pretty sure this is the one that I just brought back, because it was right at the top of my humidor. I thought sure I was gonna have to dig for
it. They're so good. Like the Dirty Rat. I mean, as it says, it does have some like earthy, tingy dirt to it, but it's got this like incredible sweetness, like this really complex sweetness and layer. And the problem with a Dirty Rat is, because it's a Corona. I mean, yeah, it's an hour smoke, but like most guys will smoke these in 40 minutes, because and I'm already an inch in, and we're like 10 minutes into the show. I'm an inch in, because I can't put this thing down. Like, I'm just puffing and puffing and puffing.
It's like Fat Bastard.
Yeah.
He eats because he's unhappy, and he's unhappy because he eats.
That's right.
It's a vicious cycle, man. You just can't stop it.
It's terrible.
Yeah, that's nothing to joke about, but you know what I mean. I was just
making
light of that tiny little situation, but we can move on. So we've got some serious expletive-deleted pairings going on here that I'm excited about. One of these beers I've never really had before, so I'm looking forward to that too. And odd topic, off topic a little bit, whatever. My wife and I went to lunch. There's this place called Jack's near us. It's on like kind of a strip mall type setting. There's a movie theater over there and everything. And it's called Jack's American Eats, I think. And it's just basic. They've got a bar, so there's a lot of bar food, and they do dinners and things. But they opened up this back room, and it's called Jack's Taps. And they've got, I could look at the picture, I don't know, 20 beers on tap, 25 beers on tap, and it's always changing. And it was, I mean, they had some artisanal stuff. A lot of local brews. I'm actually going to pull up the picture. We're just there today, and I'll make this a quick story, I promise. And where the hell did that picture go? Because I just took it. Well, that's a bummer.
I'm excited at the idea of 12 taps that rotate. I mean, that's...
Yeah, it was... but these are not in order. I'm sorry, I should have looked. Oh, here we go. Let's see, they got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 beers on tap. Ooh. And it started, I mean, the first one on the list was a triple IPA. There was a lot of local stuff. They had some Ninkasi on there, nice. Some Victory, some Allagash. And they had a a cider, and a Hefeweizen, and then you get down into they had a Firework, which is or Fieldwork, which is a local place. It's in Berkeley. They had one called the Hot Chocolate Stout. They had Prairie Bomb on tap, which is one of the beers I'm drinking tonight. They had Ballast Point Victory at Sea, which is probably if I really sat down and thought about what my favorite beers are right now, that's definitely close to the top.
Are you telling me you did this today?
Well, these were all there today. I didn't drink all of them.
I would not have been. I would not have been sober for the show. I would have been completely.
No. And then they had the North Coast Old Rasputin in a Nitro, which I had never.
Oh
had.
Man, that's such a great beer.
Yeah, I got they do little tasters. I thought it was odd. They didn't do flights, but they had little flight glasses. But I couldn't buy a flight, but she would bring me a free taste. So we did some tasting. I ended up doing the Hella Hoppy Double IPA from Fieldwork, which is, like I said, a local place in Berkeley, and it was really good. But I can definitely see us going back for a few different things. My wife had the Dawn of the Red from Ninkasi. If you haven't tried that, that's a great beer, too.
So good.
Sorry, go ahead, but I got us on a tangent. I always do that.
Yeah, no worries. I was just going to go into my first beer, which I'm, dutifully sipping on for our audience. Absolutely. That's right. It's just for you guys. It's not for me. This is the Tank 7, and there's a kind of an interesting backstory to this. So it's Tank 7 Farmhouse Ale, which is a Saison-style tank house farmhouse ale from Boulevard Brewing Company. You can check out their website, boulevard.com. Founded in 1989 by John McDonald in Kansas City, and they did a big expansion in 2006 to 600,000 barrels a day, 7,000 square foot facility, so pretty significant. The Farmhouse Ale is 38 IBUs, so I am starting with something a little bit hoppier, kind of like you are, but it seemed to sort of fit the taste profile, I think, of how we organize this. 17.3 original gravity for those paying attention to our previous podcasts, 8.5% ABV. They use pure malt and malted wheat, I should say. And then the adjuncts, which, again, if you've been paying attention in our previous episodes, which is an unmalted grain that's just added to build complexity of flavor. They add corn flakes. The hops that are included in here are Magnum, Bravo, and Amarillo. I don't remember ever running into Magnum or Bravo hops in our previous shows, but I do remember Amarillo from our IPA show. And they do recommend, which I really appreciate, they recommend a particular glass, which is a goblet. Now, I don't have a lot of goblets. This is the closest I have. I'm kind of repurposing an Innocent Gun glass here. They do also recommend some pairings, which we always appreciate. So herb roasted chicken, pork, and Taleggio cheese, which I don't know what that is, but it's got cheese in the title, so I'm pretty excited.
I think it might be Taleggio.
Is it Taleggio?
Like Bellagio?
That makes
I don't know.
sense.
That makes it sound a little bit fancier, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I like to go fancy. I think you reached the point where you're going to start drinking, so I'm going to start talking about mine here.
Please do.
I'm starting with the Ballast Point Sculpin IPA out of a can. It was brought to my attention that the cans, it tastes better out of a can than out of a bottle. I don't know if I bought that to begin with. It's like, whatever, I don't really care. Then they actually turned out to be the exact same price, a can and a bottle. Usually bottles are more expensive. But I had my wife do a blind tasting for me. She just poured each one, and same exact glass and everything. And one of them did taste better. It had a little bit brighter flavor to it. And that was out of the can. So anyway, drinking that out of the can. Ballast Point, I think they're in San Diego. Started by Jack White, not from the White Stripes, in 1992. You can go into a lot more detail about the places that you can. Let's see. In mid-2014, they finished construction on a 107,000 square foot brewery in Miramar, California.
That's insane.
The two large copper kettles discovered in a brewery in Lower Germany are the showpieces of this brewery headquarters. Wow. The Sculpin itself, Sculpin IPA, they'll give you kind of a rundown of why it's special. It's available year-round. You can get it in bottles, cans, the 22-ounce bottles as well on draft. I've never had it on draft. 7% alcohol, 70% IBUs. Again, it's a bit more bitter than normally that I would start with, but again, given the beers that we're working on tonight, I thought this was the best place to start. They give you some. They give some tasting notes here, or at least I thought they did. There's some brewer's notes. It doesn't tell me what kind of hops they use. You get hints of apricot, peach, mango, and lemon flavor, so it is kind of fruity, but it packs a bit of a sting, just like the sculpin fish. Now, the sculpin fish I think they're poisonous. They're those ugly little monsters that kind of float around at the bottom, but they're really got a lot of color on them. But I'm pretty sure they're poisonous. So that's kind of the backstory on that. So I'm going to dive in and see how this pairing goes. So
while you do that, talk a little bit about the backstory. So I had already gone into my local store, which is Kensington Wine Market. I know the guys there pretty well, and they have a lot of beers that I tend to like and make good recommendations. And I had picked up some of these Tank 7s before we even talked about it. And then I think it was Jared Grelot shared a list of the I think it was like the top 100 or top 50 beers right now in the States, like the new hotness, and the Tank 7 was on the list at 13 or 14, and I had just picked it up as a sort of coincidence going to the store. They had some new in, they hadn't tried it before. We did some tasting there, just arbitrarily did some tasting, and I mean, it's delicious. And the thing that struck me then, and certainly strikes me now, is that now this is an ale, and it's sitting at 8.5% ABV, which 8.5 is no joke. And the thing is, this goes down like it's a 5.2% or 5.4% light ale. Like it's so easy drinking, which isn't to say it isn't complex, because it is. It's got this really nice citrus quality, but not to the level of an IPA. So it's got like a hint of hoppiness, hint of citrus, and then it's got this sort of Belgian style, that sort of bready, yeasty flavor to it, but it's refreshing. Like it's something you could absolutely drink on a hot summer day. And again, the scary thing is it's 8.5, and it goes down like water, which can either be good or bad, I guess, depending on how you want to drink. But so far it's going actually really well with the Dirty Rat. I wasn't sure it was going to, but it cuts the sweetness of the Dirty Rat quite nicely, pairs well.
I think my experience is a little bit is kind of on par with yours. Now, I've had this Sculpin IPA several times. On that same list, Jared copied me on that on Facebook, and I think this was number 3. The Pliny the Elder was number 1. I can't remember what number 2 was. And I'm pretty sure the Sculpin IPA was number 3. And then the Sculpin Grapefruit IPA, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
It is absolutely fantastic. It was like 35 or something on that list. But they also have a Sculpin Habanero IPA, which, from what I understand, is really freaking spicy. And my wife picked up a couple. And I've been told that you kind of have to drink it with food, and it's good with Mexican food. So I think next time we have Mexican food, we're going to crack those open. Anyway, so I've had this before, and those flavor notes that they were talking about, where you get the hints of apricot, peach, mango, and lemon, those flavors that are kind of common to a bright IPA. And with this pairing with the Dirty Rat, you're right, it's cutting through the sweetness of the cigar big time, and it brings out all these. The beer gets really, really floral, and normally floral isn't a good thing for me, but it even smells different.
Yeah, I'm usually not a big fan of floral either in my cigar or my beer, but I mean, if it's balanced out in the cigar or the beer, it can be really, really good.
Yeah, it caught me by surprise, and I'm starting to realize that IPAs actually pair a little bit better than I think we thought they would.
Yeah.
If I was sitting down with this, and I would be very happy with the way that it's reacting with the cigar, which is a fantastic cigar, and this beer, which is a fantastic beer. Beer is significantly more available to me than the cigar is. So if the cigar overran it, I wouldn't be mad. But they're playing really well together. It's very interesting.
Just a reminder to our audience, you were listening to Sharing Our Pairings, episode 32, Drew Estate Unicos pairing. We're broadcast live on Cigar Federation Network, cigarfederation.com. You can also check us out on podcast on Apple, iOS, or Android. Thanks so much for tuning in. Appreciate you guys' questions when you plug them in. And, of course, we are drinking some tasty beers. I'm currently drinking the Tank Farmhouse Ale 7, which is a Saison-style ale, and it is going down very, very easily. In fact, I've already polished off half this glass in like 10 minutes flat. And, you could literally drink a bottle of this in about 15 minutes, which I don't recommend, regardless of what your alcohol tolerance is. 8.5% will leave you pretty happy. The pairing actually works really well for a summer pairing. I think this would be really good with a lot of medium plus cigars. Any kind of heavy Maduro that's got some dirtiness to it or some earthiness to it. It's got a really nice mouthfeel, and the citrus I think is really refreshing for the palate.
Yeah, I would agree, man. I'm surprised. I'm surprised at how good this is. It's taking the flavors from the cigar and it's taking this beer to a totally different place than I was expecting it to go. The flavor profile goes from that bitterness that you get from an IPA isn't really there. That's kind of strange. It's getting overrun by the flavors from the cigar, and it just leaves you with a kind of a smooth, very, very aromatic, flowery almost kind of flavors, like tea leaves or something. I don't know. It's really, really strange. But to kind of echo what you were saying, I'm thinking that this Sculpin IPA would pair pretty well with, yeah, just about any kind of chewy Maduro that's going to have some earthiness to it, and a little bit of sweetness is going to pair really well with this particular beer.
I'm thinking like a nice beefy Liga 9 or even a Feral Flying Pig. Pair that with a nice balanced IPA, and you're gonna be a happy camper.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna move on because that Tank 7 is gonna leave me incoherent by the time I'm done. And I'm hopping over to my Green Flash Double Stout, and Kevin Freer from and I always forget the breweries with, which is really embarrassing, but he pointed out Wellington. He's with Wellington Brewery. Anyways, he pointed out on Instagram that the bottle I had was possibly an earlier 2014, possibly even a 2013. I don't think it says anywhere on the bottle when it was brewed, which is unfortunate, but I'm pretty sure it is in early 2014 based on the fact that they've changed their packaging. At any rate, I picked up a pile of these because I went to a stout tasting, and I absolutely fell in love with this. And you can see it is dark like Satan's soul. It's just motor oil, and I poured it into a goblet as they recommended. Green Flash Brewing is established in San Diego in 2002 by Mike and Lisa Hinckley. Their brewmaster is Chuck Silva. The Double Stout has 45 IBUs, so we are stepping it up a little bit. 8.8% ABV, and is available all year round, so it's not a seasonal thing, which is nice. You can either buy it in a 12-ounce bottle, as I held up previously, or a keg. That's it. They describe the tasting notes as golden naked oats, dark crystal, and roasted malt, with a balance of bittersweet chocolate, hints of coffee. And I can tell you the nose in this is absolutely like a dark chocolate and a coffee, like some espresso. And while I dig into this, I'm going to pass it back to you.
That beer sounds fantastic, by the way.
Uh-huh.
I kind of went off the reservation a little bit, and I picked up, I'm going to try to say this, and I'm probably going to jack it up. It's from Stone Brewery. It's the Stochasticity Project. I'll let you try to say it. You can read it. Stochasticity. 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 Whatever. And it's the Hi-Fi Lo-Fi mixtape. It's a blend of fresh and barrel-aged ales. It just sounded really different, and the folks from Stone, they do a lot of different stuff. They're doing all kinds of different collaborations and things. They're kind of out there like Rogue is with some of their weird stuff. So this particular beer has its own website, Stochasticity.com, and the Hi-Fi Lo-Fi mixtape. That's what this is. It's a strong ale blend, is what it's called. 8.8% alcohol by volume, 70 IBUs. And I'm actually going to read from straight from the website here. This is a beer that pays homage to centuries-old tradition of combining new beer with aged stock ales. Freshly brewed beers of the day were often very smoky and bitter tasting, and were blended with older beer that had mellowed out with some age to produce more drinkable libation. This modern brew will showcase our brewers' talents by blending the stock ale aged more than 3 months in oak foudres, Foudres, I don't know, large wooden fermentation vessels. Why can't they just call them barrels? I mean, okay. Fancy. And it doesn't help that I changed the resolution on my screen, so like the letters are really freaking tiny.
Nice.
That's why I'm leaning forward. I feel like an old woman. And with a fresh version of the same beer to create perfect harmony, spanning end to end on the taste spectrum. So it's basically they brewed this beer, let it age for 3 months, then brewed some fresh and mixed them together. I don't think they go into too many descriptors about this particular beer. Oh, actually, I take it back. We can get all into it now. We got hop varieties.
Get up all in that.
We got Fuggle hops, which we've had before, Apollo hops, which we've had before, and Target hops. I'm not sure if we've had those or not. The malts, we've got English Pale, English Mild Ale, and English Amber. The blend, wow, I'm not even sure how to read this. 80% lo-fi brewed to 18 degrees Plato, okay, and it's 8.3 alcohol 8.3% alcohol by volume. Wow, it's like I never learned to read. 20% hi-fi is brewed at 24 degrees Plato, which is 10.5% alcohol by volume. And it was aged for 4 months. In first use California red wine, French, and Hungarian oak barrels. So that is a lot of information about what's going on here. Some of the there's tasting notes. I can go on for a while. Apparently, there's a lot going on here. So the beer pours the deep amber and creamy white head, giggity, and a touch of haze, strong fruity notes, and light sherry notes, oak, and a toasted malt. Now you can see it's definitely got kind of an amber color to it. I mean, by comparison to the IPA, I mean, I don't know how well you can really see that, but it's got a definite, like an amber, like the stuff that they found the mosquitoes in for Jurassic Park. Yes. The aromas, strong fruit notes, sherry, we talked about that. The taste, oak with some light berry fruitness followed by a dry bitter finish. And it is full-bodied with nice bitterness and astringency. So after all of that, I need a drink because that was a lot to talk about. So I'm probably going to have to relight my cigar too. So I'm going to do that while you talk about yours, Jim.
So what's interesting, and I said before that I've had this double stout by Green Flash, and I love it. I mean, you want to talk a meal in a glass. That's what this stout is. I mean, it's just a beefy, thick, full-bodied, punch you in the face stout. And if you don't like full-bodied stouts, you probably want to stay away from this. But if you like full-bodied stouts, I mean, this is a great stout. I mean, this would be a great pairing with with a heavy meal like ribs or a prime rib or something like that. I'm not sure it's necessarily the best pairing with a cigar. It is interesting because it's bringing out more of the leather and earth qualities of the cigar, but I found that the sweetness, which is kind of one of the things I really like about the Dirty Rat, is it like really complex sweetness, really just gets enveloped by the just dark, rich espresso chocolate from this stout. So does it work? Yes. Is it an ideal pairing? Probably not. I think if you were to pair this, I'm not even sure really what you'd pair this with. Like maybe you'd pair this with I don't know, a Neanderthal. Like, I mean, you just have to be a really full body beefy cigar, I think, to stand up to the stout, because the stout is just, it's got so much character. It's going to be a tough one, I think, to pair with anything other than something that's really full bodied. Challenge
accepted. Now just tell me where I can get my hands on some of that, because it sounds fantastic.
Well, you should be able to get your hands on it more than I should. I mean,
yeah, probably. I've probably seen it and walked right past it. Who knows? So this pairing is really interesting. When we go back to the tasting notes here, I won't read all this again, I promise. So oak with a fruity yeast character, the malt shine mid-palate, combining with oak and light berry fruitness for a dry and bitter finish. Excuse me, it's definitely got a dry finish to it. But when you combine these two, it turns into this jammy fruit session. It's so strange that how versatile the cigar has been so far with these two, vastly different beers that I'm pairing it with. These two beers have no business being consumed one right after the other. They're very, very different.
Yeah.
And the pairing is really interesting. It turns into this fruity, jammy cherry note, kind of on the tongue from both pairings. And the cigars on the retro from the cigar, I'm getting a lot more of that earth, a little bit of spice that I wasn't getting before. The sweetness, like you were saying, is kind of gone right now. But when you get that jammy fruit flavor, most of the sweetness is coming from the beer. It's very interesting. I need to keep doing this. Talk about something.
So. Again, I'm sort of sipping as best as I can this double stout without guzzling it, because it is very tasty. It is very easy drinking in the sake that you don't want to put it down. But it's interesting because even though it's only 0.3% more ABV than the Tank 7, it kind of illustrates how, and I think this is really relevant with cigars, something you can talk about strength. So in this case, strength for alcohol is the ABV, but the body isn't necessarily the same. So the Tank 7, I would describe as a medium-bodied ale, whereas the double stout is absolutely, full-bodied. Like it's so full-bodied. And on every sip, all I'm getting is this, thick toasted malt with coffee and espresso, and it's fantastic. But unfortunately, it's just so strong and so powerful that you'd really have to go into a Liga 9 or just something really, really strong, I think, to stand up to it. I don't think a Unicos is going to be the way to go. You work really hard to get your hands on a Unicos, and you really don't want to waste it in a pairing, because who knows how many you have in your collection, and who knows, maybe that's your only cigar safari trip for the year, so maybe you're not going to get another one. I think so far the Tank 7 is a hands down winner in my vertical tasting.
After sampling this a few more times, I'm getting why I was really picking up on that jammy fruit note. Take a puff of the cigar, get the nice earthy flavors on the tongue, right? A little bit of that sweetness from the wrapper on there. You get some spice on the retrohale, not a ton, but it's real nice, right? And then you take a sip of this beer, and I don't taste much until the finish. And on that finish, I'm getting that jammy cherry flavor, that jammy fruit cherry. And that's why I feel like that's the only thing I'm tasting, because it's really the only thing I'm getting from the beer. The rest of it's getting run over by the cigar. So while it's, in a way, it's not that bad, because it's highlighting the cigar in a really nice way. This isn't a cheap beer by any means, but it's not going to be that hard to find. I think you can get it just about anywhere. And if I was pairing the two, and this is the pairing that I was with, and I chose it, I wouldn't be mad about it, because it's highlighting the cigar. I think that this might actually make the cigar taste a little bit better than when it was with the Sculpin or the IPA, but I liked that pairing better because it was more enjoyable on both ends. This one is a little bit, the flavors on the cigar are definitely overpowering what the hi-fi, lo-fi, mixtape, is providing.
So maybe a little too contrasting versus complementary for you?
Yeah, and this beer is interesting. I want to drink it on a fresh palate. I took a few sips, and it starts out like a sour. When some I've had a few sours that start out, and that sourness doesn't really hit your palate right away. It has that kind of big, round, bold flavor to it, and then instead of getting sour, it gets bitter. So that's that bitter finish, and it's actually kind of intriguing, but the flavor from the cigar, or the strength from the cigar, is just kind of overpowering. So it's not bad for the cigar. It's bad for the beer.
Fair enough. Now, what's interesting is, because you mentioned you'd have to get your hands on it. So, of course, like I said, Green Flash is out of San Diego. So I'm surprised that your local Bevmo or whatever is not absolutely stocked. Well, so
do you have the bottle?
Yeah, this is the old packaging. So this is probably what's throwing it. So you have to go to the website, which is greenflashbrew.com, and check out their new packaging. It's more it's less of a fancy label and more of a uniform color. And that's probably what's throwing it, because they did switch over to the new packaging, I think, in early 2014. And they've kind of done what Rogue did, which is they kind of have a unified branding
yeah.
strategy.
Yeah, I see this. I see this kind all the time. I don't know that I've seen that particular beer. Which one do you have? You have the double stout. It's the silver.
It's a double stout. Yeah.
Oh, I bet I could go buy this right now. Interesting.
You should be able to. I would think, right? California.
Yeah, I've seen the West Coast IPA, for sure. I've seen the West Coast IPA that's got the purple. I think I've seen the Imperial IPA and the 30th Street. Like Freak, I probably would have picked up just because of the name. But I don't know that I've seen the double stout. But again, in my opinion, the packaging is a little bit lame. The way that they changed it, I don't know what the original packaging looked like. The one that you had, it's very different than this. It just looks very basic to me. So I would probably bypass it.
Interesting.
Just based on the way that it looks. Because, I mean, to me, it looks like, I don't know, it looks small time to me.
Interesting.
You know, sometimes you could put a funky band on a cigar, and it's like, I don't know if I really want to smoke it just based on the band because it looks kind of janky. I mean, some cigars have done that, and I mean, I don't want to name any of them specifically right now, but I could think of a good 5 or 6 off the top of my head that are really good cigars, but you look at the branding, and you're like, whoa, man, it's kind of surprised you've sold any of them. They look like this. But they're still good cigars, so that's kind of a good lesson. What is it? Don't judge a book by its cover, right?
Yeah. So maybe that's an important tip because I'm sure that the people from Green Flash are tuning into our show. Rob says maybe your packaging is not giving the beer its proper due. Your marketing department may want to rethink that for 2016.
That's good. I hope I just got a bunch of people fired.
Oh, hopefully not, and hopefully it's not us.
Yeah, no, I don't. I don't want to get anybody fired. You know me. I want everybody to be. Oh, you know what? Watched a movie last night. I'm going to digress.
Please do.
And it was Hector and His Search for Happiness.
Mm.
Have you heard of this film?
I have.
With the British guy. I can't think of his name. But he was Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah, and he's in the Tom Cruise films or whatever.
He's also in those. You're right. But anyway, he's a psychiatrist, and he goes traveling the world searching for happiness. And I actually read the book, and the book is written in a really whimsical kind of way. Like it actually starts with the words "Once upon a time," and it's written in a very interesting way, but it's got a lot of good messages in it. And there was one quote when I said, I wouldn't want to get anybody fired. He said, "Why would we want to prolong anyone's pain or failure or something like that?" I'm like, why would you? You wouldn't want to do that. It's just evil. So anyway, there's our PSA for the day. Don't prolong anyone's agony.
You're listening to Sharing Our Pairings, episode 32, Drew Estate Unicos pairing. We're pairing with some delicious and expensive beers that are all probably on the top 50 list for this year. We are being broadcast live around the world on cigarfederation.com through the Cigar Federation app, and of course, we're rebroadcast through YouTube. If you haven't checked us out live, we appreciate you tuning in through a podcast. We know you podcast listeners are out there from Japan to Sweden to Germany. I noticed we have a ton of listeners from Nicaragua. No doubt baby. That's all the manufacturers who are bored and it's hot, and they're like, let's listen to these two clowns talk about our cigars for a couple hours, and hey, we appreciate you tuning in. I'm excited to tie into my last beer here. I mean, we talk about spending money for the show, and I think this one beer cost me $13 for a single beer. Now it is, it's a pretty
sizable wine bottle. Quit your whining.
Yeah, I quit my whining. I mean, I don't have a job, but whatever. Anyways, it's the Grande Cuvée Porter Baltique. And it seems appropriate to have a Quebec brewery beer on Canada Day. We've had a lot of Quebec beers featured on the show, whether it's Dieu du Ciel or Unibrow or any of the other wonderful breweries out there. This one is from, and I practiced this before the show, so I'm going to put myself on the spot. Les Trois Mousquetaires, which is the Three Musketeers in French. And I had my girlfriend run me through the pronunciation because she speaks French fairly fluently. I do not speak French fluently. If you want to read from my terrible French to find the website, you can, lestroismusketeers.ca for Canada, or the easiest thing to do is just go to our show page, click on the website. They've got a really, really interesting web page, which has an enormous amount of information. I'm going to summarize why while I try to gently take this cork off and not spill this expensive beer all over my lap.
Don't bruise it.
Don't bruise it. So it was founded in 2004. They actually purchased another brewery in existence, the Express Brau in Saint Eustache, Brossard, Quebec. So that in 2006, they started offering 2 basic beers, which was the D'Artagnan, which is a pale, and then Artemis, which is the red. So just 2 beers to start with. And then in 2008, they expanded because the demand was so high to a regular, signature, and Grande Cuvée, which is the one I'm drinking today. And then in 2011, they upgraded their facilities to Mat Boulevard, which was 3 times the size. So a significant upgrade. The Grande Cuvée, which again, I'm trying to get the cork out without making a mess here. It is one of the things they started to do in 2008 is use more local ingredients, which is kind of interesting. So they made a real push to use ingredients that were only available in Quebec. So this has 85% of the malt coming from Quebec. It is Pilsner, Munich, Cara 6160, wheat, oat, Carafe Bresse, which I don't know what that is, but it's a smoked malt. And then they use Pearl, Centennial, and Summit hops, which we've all had on the show before. The original gravity is 25.2. It is 10% ABV, so it's pretty beefy, and that's why I put it last. It is 27 IBUs. It seems to have opened without any issue, which is fantastic. I'm going to try and pour this while I talk, see how I do. The SRM or Lovabond is 45. So if you've been paying attention to previous shows, the Lovabond is extremely dark. They actually have a recommended serving temperature, and as you can see, I mean, it's very much like the Green Flash Double Stout, very, very dark. They recommend serving temperature between 10 and 14 degrees centigrade or 50 to 57.2 Fahrenheit. So I appreciate that. Pairing recommendations are smokehouse meats, chocolates, pralines, and strong cheeses. And they say the flavor profile has coffee, chocolate, vanilla, black cherry, and a smokiness. And you can age this for 3 to 5 years and really get a lot more out of the beer. And they do recommend pouring in a goblet. Now, I don't have a lot of goblets, but figured it was appropriate to have the Dieu du Ciel goblet, which is another brewery out of Quebec, which I love. And as I'm daintily sip on this because it's very expensive, I'll let you take over on your third beer.
Daintily, I like that.
Daintily.
Yeah, though that sounds fantastic, and I need to get my hands on some goblets.
Oh my God!
There's a giggity moment there. What do you got?
It's so good.
It's other level stuff. That's ESPN next level or what?
Anyways, carry on.
Let's see. So the beer that I decided to go with is a beer that I know most of you have seen, if not tried. It is the Prairie Bomb, Prairie Artisan Ales, the Prairie Bomb. Imperial Stout aged with coffee, cocoa nibs. I do like a good nib. Vanilla beans, and chili peppers. One of these things is not like the others. That would be the chili peppers. So a little bit about Prairie Artisan Ales. Their website is pretty cool. They don't give a ton of info, but I like their little Who We Are segment. It's prairieales.com. And it says, "Welcome to Prairie Ales. This is a company started by 2 brothers. We didn't start it due to lack of good beer or whatever people like to say in this part of their website. We wanted to do something that was awesome. We have the talent and, most importantly, the years of experience needed to get it done, so we did it. We have funded the company on our own and only want to work with people that care about beer, super good beer. Our goal is to show people what is possible when you start with, quote-unquote, step 1. I just like the way that was written. Like they weren't trying to fill some void in the market or whatever. Like he says, whatever people say there on their website, they just wanted to do something awesome, and you got to respect them for that, or at least I do. So the Prairie Bomb is a big daddy beer.
Absolutely.
It is 65 IBUs, and the ABV is 13%. Now, when I was at the local place today and they had Prairie Bomb on tap, they had it at 14.4.
Wow.
So,
good Lord.
It's somewhere in between the two, but needless to say, it's freaking high, man. It's available in 12-ounce bottles and in kegs. Now, there's different bottles. This or the bottle's the same, but I know there's some differences. This one didn't have any of that wax on the top, and they have some that there's a gold wax, and there's some that have like a pinkish wax. And I think those were just kind of I think it might have been like the first few runs were gold. The next few runs had that pink wax across the top, and then I think they stopped that when they got when their distribution grew. I actually saw it today at Bevmo. I've never seen Prairie artisan ales at Bevmo, so they're definitely expanding. And if you haven't been able to find it in the past, chances are you're going to be able to find it moving forward, because if they have it at Bevmo, they're going to start getting it in a lot of different places. And if you have like a specialty mart around you, something like a Whole Foods or something like that, we have that on the West Coast. I don't know if they're national or not, but you'll find it at places like that. And it's not cheap. This is a 12-ounce bottle, regular size bottle. This cost me $11 for a regular bottle. John's whining about paying $14 for 750 milliliters. All right, I got 12 ounces for $10.99, so I don't want to hear it.
I'm on a budget, man. I can't afford it.
I'm on a budget, son. No, we're all on a budget, man. So now you've had this beer before. I've had this beer before, and when I took the first sip, and it was like, it just completely blew me away, because it's so different from the beers that I've tasted. And I almost wanted to do this one first, which would have been completely wrong as far as flavor is concerned. But I think this is going to be the best pairing. I haven't had a chance because I let my cigar go out because I've been talking too much. And so while John talks about his nectar of the gods that he's working on over there, I'm going to get involved in this pairing too.
So I just want to reiterate, and we've talked about this in the show, and I know we've talked about it on Cigar Chat, and we talk about body and strength. And there's so many parallels that I feel between cigars and flavor and strength, and beer and flavor and strength. Because you can have a beer that has a lot of strength, in this case ABV, and it doesn't have a lot of body, a lot of flavor. And the Prairie Bomb that Rob is drinking, I've had on many occasions. In fact, I had it at a tasting, and I think it was the top beer of the night. And I think I went to the shelf and literally scooped the shelf and dumped like 8 or 10 of them in my bag. And I'm like, yeah, I'll take all of these, because it's outrageous. It's like a 4.5, 5-star beer. Like, it's amazing, amazing beer. This is the first time I'm drinking this Grande Cuvée. And it's interesting because I put this last, and I, didn't know the profile because I hadn't had it before. I bought it on a blind recommendation from Sean at Kensington Wine Market. Sean really knows his beers, and I said, I kind of gave him the profile of the cigar I was smoking, and I said, what do you recommend? And I have another Grande Cuvée that I picked up. I actually picked up like 6 bottles of it, because it tasted like a port wine. Like, it's unbelievable, and I'll probably have it on a future show. But again, it's not an inexpensive beer, so it's not something I just kind of crack and then guzzle. But this Porter Baltique is kind of I want to say it's a perfect marriage between the Tank 7 rich ale saison flavor and the double stout. So instead of my palate just being completely blown out by this rich, heavy stout, it's got a lot of the characteristics, but it finishes very smoothly. It's not a heavy finish. It's a sort of I would say it's a cross between like maybe a triple ale, like a Belgian triple ale, and a saison and a stout. Like, if you marry those 3 together, that's what it tastes like to me. And if you kind of heard me a few minutes ago go, oh baby, like, it's unbelievable. Like, it's really good. And what's interesting to me is that the Tank 7 was pairing really well with the cigar. This Porter Baltique is phenomenal. It doesn't run over the cigar at all. It allows the sweet characteristics of the Dirty Rat to come through, and it's really highlighting a lot of the nuanced flavors. And I'm actually going to have to take some more sips and some more puffs, because honestly, it's complex, and I have to kind of sit and think about it. It's tough to verbalize, to be honest.
I'm just listening to you. It's like I want to go get some of that.
It's so good.
This Prairie Ale, Prairie Bomb, Prairie Artisan Ales Bomb, ! Is really, really good. Now, it's a big beer. It's a bold beer. There's a lot of flavor to it, but I've found that it's got a lot of strength to it as far as ABV is concerned. 13, 14%. Forget about it. A lot of coffee notes. some chocolate in there. The vanilla, they say they brew it with vanilla beans. I don't get a lot of vanilla, but maybe that's just some extended sweetness that there is in there because it is a really sweet beer. And there's just that tiniest of bite from the pepper, the chili peppers that they use. And there's a particular type of pepper that they use. It is ancho, A-N-C-H-O, ancho chili peppers. And that sounds to me, based on the flavor that I'm getting, it's probably more of a sweet pepper than a spicy pepper. But it just has just a little bit of a kick at the end, not too much. And that's if you're just drinking it by itself. You add in this Dirty Rat, which has that sweetness. It's got some earthiness to it that you're going to pair with this coffee here. It's got a little bit of spice to it that's going to help bring out some of the spice in this beer. It's absolutely perfect. This is the best pairing I've ever had. Ever.
Wow.
With anything. I mean, hands down the best pairing I've ever had on our show. Forget about it. And the only other pairing that I think comes close is when I fire up a 64 Maduro, and I've graduated from Zaya. Zaya was the first one that I really liked. A 64 Maduro with Zacapa. Forget about it. That's fantastic. But this is the best non-rum pairing that I've ever had. This is the best beer pairing I've ever had. They complement each other perfectly. Because I've had them both on their own. And when you have them together, it really does take it somehow to another level. It's like you were saying, it's a little bit hard to verbalize, but the coffee in here becomes just a little bit more distinct, and that vanilla really does kind of sweeten everything out. And that chocolate is in there. You're gonna get a little bit of chocolate from the cigar and some chocolate from the beer. It's the overlap of flavor that comes from each one really takes. Like the way I like to think about it is I take a puff of the cigar, then I take a sip of the beer and try to continue it. And it makes everything last a little bit longer and taste just a little bit stronger flavors. And it's kind of perfect. I imagine that, because I poured the full thing. I don't have the fancy glasses. I just use a stemless wine glass here, and I think this is actually a Pinot glass. But I wanted something with a wide base. And this is the best I could come up with. But I imagine that if I had this full cigar and this full beer, that would be a really good hour.
Nice. Well, so it's interesting that you say that's your favorite pairing you've ever had on the show, because I find myself wanting to claim that for the show, this Porter Baltique and this Dirty Rat may be my favorite pairing ever on the show. And we had some really good pairings with the Smoking Monk IPA and some of the IPAs. And I think what we may end up having to do as a yearly wrap-up is taking some of our favorite pairings and revisiting that. Now, I do have quite a few of those Prairie Bombs, so I might store one away and revisit that with a Dirty Rat, when we do a 2015 wrap-up. But this Porter Baltique is phenomenal. I think what it is the sort of black cherry, vanilla, sort of muddled slight coffee and chocolate really brings out a lot of the Dirty Rat. And I think we were talking a little bit about that when we were talking about my Tank 7 Farmhouse Ale, which has a bit of IPA quality to it, and hoppiness bringing out a lot of that cigar. And I think this is a cigar that works really well when you get a fruity, citrusy characteristic from the beer. It draws a lot out of the cigar. It doesn't run over the cigar, because I think, if you go to something too heavy, too stoutish, like if you had to go to Russian Imperial Stout, it would just run the cigar over. But if you go to something that's nuanced and complex, it really draws a lot of the cigar. And this to me, my pairing is, I'm in a happy place.
Yeah, it's funny, man. Like, I feel like what I'm doing here, at least with this pairing, is taking one of my favorite beers, which I don't indulge in often because of the price and because it's like 14% alcohol. So it really does. After one beer, you're pretty good.
Yep.
You don't want to be driving, or operating any sort of heavy machinery, or sending out tweets. You never know. You could have really inappropriate pictures that you could send out just because you had one beer. Mm-hmm. But taking that with one of my favorite cigars, a Dirty Rat, that I don't smoke very often because, like we talked about, they're hard to find. And when you do find them, they're not cheap. But I've been lucky enough to get my hands on a few, and this is a pairing that I will seek out again. Like I'll go on a mission when I run out of Dirty Rats. I'm going to buy more just so I can pair them with this Prairie Bomb. This is fantastic. And I did a little bit of quick research here. The different batches of Prairie Bomb come with different color wax. So there's a red wax, which was batch number 2. I'm guessing that the gold wax was number 1, but I think if you do a little bit of research here, you can find, let's see, Prairie Bomb wax color significance. It's on Beer Advocate here.
I love Beer Advocate. BeerAdvocate.com. If you guys want to find out some really interesting information about your beers, how they rate, the kind of awards they get, highly recommend BeerAdvocate.com. Check it out.
Yeah, they've got gold was batch number 1, the gold wax. Red wax, which is batch number 2. I have one of those. And there's a blue wax, which is batch number 3. I think after that, they came out with no wax, which is when they got into more of a broad release, because they're far more available now than they have been in the past. Like I said, I found it at Bevmo. No wax on any of them. So I think that the wax, if you come across any of them that had wax on them, they're definitely older version, just like that beer that you had that had the old branding on it, kind of a similar scenario there.
The Eclipse, yeah.
So there you go. That's a little bit of it. God, that beer is good. There's so much going on that you could just sip it and enjoy it. But I think if you really sit and you focus on it, like that particular sip was a lot more chocolatey than any other sips I've had. So there's so much going on that any given sip, you can really focus on a different flavor and just kind of nerd out on every freaking sip. There's not a lot of beers that you can do that with.
No, and I mean, that's kind of how I'm feeling about this Porter Baltique is that, it's almost like a whiskey where I'm taking a sip, I'm kind of thinking about it, I take a puff of the cigar, I'm thinking about how the flavors intermix. And again, I can't really get over how balanced they are together. Normally when we talk about beer and cigar pairing, you lose some of the notes of the cigar, you lose some of the notes in the beer because ultimately beer is a very, very complex living entity of yeast that you're creating, and the cigar is very much the same thing. There's so much going on, there's so much flavor, and it varies so greatly from batch to batch. So to get two that marry really well together, that's the ultimate thing of what we're searching for on the show, beyond the fact of finding all the pairings that don't work, I think.
Just to show people what I was talking about, I dropped my cigar. So there might be an expletive deleted that you picked up in the background. I apologize for that. So this is the Prairie that I opened today. This is the one, and it's hard to tell. That's the wax on the top there. So this one didn't have it, obviously. And it's pinkish, so I'm guessing this is the red wax. And it doesn't give a year on here anywhere, though. Like you were saying with yours, it's not dated in any way. But I picked this up. This was given to me by a Cigar Federation member whose name is escaping me right now. And I feel like an ass because I can't remember. But he's in Houston, and he was nice enough to send me a bunch of beers, and I can't, for the life of me, remember who it was. And now I'm reminded that I need to send him some stuff. But yeah, so that's one of the things with the Prairies. There's a lot of things like that in cigars, and I'm finding them now in beer too. That there's older versions or little tweaks that are like, well, this was the 2013, or like we talked about with Fuentes, how they're really hard to tell, but you can get from different foot bands or whatever that this was a different release. So it's just another similar thing that they're doing there. I wish there was a date on it somewhere though.
It'd be nice.
Yeah.
So of course, later this week, tomorrow, we've got Fratello Cigars coming on. Omar, who's always a good time. Omar is a great guy. Fratello does cigars and coffee, and I'll be sitting in for Logan, who I think is still in India, parts unknown. So
he's en route.
That
trip home from India can get tricky, man.
And you know what? For a show with Omar and talking about cigars and talking about coffee, I'm not going to feel bad about sitting in his seat. That's just not something that's going to be making me feel bad. We actually had, if you guys are following our schedule for this week, we actually had to bump Colin from Twin Engine Coffee, which we apologize for. Unfortunately, we had some issues with United States Postal Service not delivering the coffee in expected time up to Canada, which happens from time to time. So hopefully, with any luck, we'll see if we can fit them in next week. We've got a kind of a tight schedule here prior to the IPCPR, but we're going to see if we can fit them in next week. So stay tuned for that. Just a reminder, I drank the Boulevard Brewing Company Tank 7 Farmhouse Ale, which I really enjoyed. I'm going to put that as my number 2 pairing for the night. Green Flash Double Stout, which I love. It's I can't get enough of those, quite frankly. But in terms of pairing, doesn't really go well with this Dirty Rat. Just doesn't bring out a lot of the cigar. I think the Le Trois Mousquetaires Grande Cuvée Porter Baltique is hands down not only my winner for the evening, but I'm going to put it in as a soft number 1 all-time pairing on our show. Now, I know I've had pairings that are better, but in terms of being broadcast live, this is probably my favorite pairing to date.
Excuse me, you caught me with a little bit of air in my system from drinking these beers here. Just to recap what I had, if you're looking on cigarfederation.com, it's all listed there. There's links to all the websites so you can check out all the information. Started with the Ballast Point Sculpin IPA, fantastic beer. One of my favorite IPAs, right up there with Pliny the Elder, as they're different, but very, very good beers. The pairing was great. I enjoyed it a lot. I thought that was going to be my favorite pairing until we got to the end. And I had this Hi-Fi Lo-Fi mixtape, Stone something project. You can try to say that on your own. Very good beer, interesting pairing, and I know this is kind of become an ongoing joke, but I almost feel like a Cameroon wrapper would pair really nicely with that, with the flavor, because there was some nice nuanced flavor there that I feel like and there's some nice nuanced flavor that you get out of a Cameroon. I feel like they could intermingle well and not. The cigar's not going to run that beer over, and that beer has a lot of flavor to offer. It's just the cigar was really crushing it. And I mean, the pairing of the evening is the Prairie Bomb from Prairie Artisan Ales. Artisanal. It's artisan. ARTISAN. There's no AL at the end.
Oh, okay. Artisan.
Artisan Ales. I mean, forget about it. It's one of the best beers I've ever had, with one of the best cigars I've ever had, and they run hand in hand through a meadow of dandelions with butterflies and doves flying around, and they're skipping, and it's fantastic.
Is it one of those things where you light up the cigar and then you just see a flock of doves sort of fly out of the tall grasses
Or I have the beer in one hand, the cigar in the other, and I'm riding on a unicorn over a rainbow into like Superville or something. I don't know. It's fantastic. And you went with the soft number 1. I'm going to go with the solid, firm number 1. This is my favorite pairing of all time. Without a doubt, it's the best beer pairing I've ever had. And we've had some good beer pairings that we've talked about.
Really good beer pairings, yeah.
And I've probably said that before on this show. That's the best beer pairing I've ever had. But this is better. Whenever I said that before, this is better than that. Whatever that was. It's fantastic.
Well, I mean, that's what we're going for on the show, is always topping the last pairings. And I mean, I think certainly tonight's show really illustrates the concept of drink better, drink less, because all of the beers we've been drinking tonight are, top tier beers that, for the price and for the size and for the toughness of getting are not something you're just going to pound down. These are all excellent beers in their own right. And I think this has been one of my favorite pairing shows to date for sure.
Yeah, and it was this was kind of we fly by the seat of our pants here at Sharing
Absolutely.
Our Pairings, and we had every intention of pairing some coffee today. But I'll be honest, this is I'll blame this on me. I'm not going to blame this on the Postal Service. When I shipped that coffee to you, I was given options, man, and it was $35. Or $40 or whatever it was to make sure it got to you by the 1st, or $10 and take a shot. I went 10. I'm cheap. It was. I mean, I love you, man, and this show means a lot to me. But if I could save $20 and maybe still get it to you on time, whatever. And now I feel like you might even owe me a pat on the back because we got to do this show because it was a lot of fun.
It was.
To really go with it's a bit of a different take than what we've done in the past, where we really just focus on one particular cigar. I know we did this with the Cameroon wrapper where we both smoked Fuente. We both smoked Hemingways, right?
Hemingways.
So yeah. And this time really focusing on the Dirty Rat, which is a cigar that everybody who has smoked it loves to talk about, says it's a great cigar, and it really is. But to pair it with if you like Dirty Rats and you're looking for something to pairing it with, we just gave you 6 options. Some are easier to find than others, of course, but this was a lot of fun, man. I want to do more shows like this.
Hell yeah. And, I think what's fun for us, and we do fly by the seat of our pants. Some of the best show ideas we've come up with are under pressure because, we have a guest double booked or because we got something else going on. But ultimately, we're just trying to try different pairings that's going to work and try different pairings that aren't going to work. And sometimes the pairings that don't work are just as much fun as the pairings that do work. I think tonight it's the opposite. The pairings that do work are illustrating some of the best pairings we've ever had, and it's a nice switch from the Gloria R and the ginger ale.
I know we keep going back to that, but we did get some good pairings out of that show, though.
We did.
And just a quick note from Anthony Russo, and that's Anthony. Are you the one who sent that to me? I think it was Anthony who sent that to me. Anthony, if you're still watching, please confirm that. I feel like he was the one who sent that to me, and I feel like an ass for not knowing. But he says that the pink wax is 4 years old.
Wow.
So I'd be curious. That's one of those things like, oh man, how do you open it? But then at the same time, how do you not?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like that sounds like a nice afternoon. I'm gonna go buy a fresh one, and I'm gonna pop them both and see how that goes, and I'll fill you guys in on how it went. But I do think that it was Anthony who sent that to me. Yes, it was. Anthony, thank you so much. And I still have, I think I have most of the other stuff that you sent me. You sent me a Dogfish Head 120-minute IPA, which I haven't cracked open yet. And I know he sent me some local stuff too. So again, Anthony, thank you so much for that. And I apologize. I need to get back to you. Although you didn't ask for it, you sent it to me just as it was a gift. But a gift like that requires return fire, as everybody knows. If you're not a member of Cigar Federation and you just happen to listen to the shows because you like our banter or whatever you like what we're doing, you got to come check out the community. I've been a member of a lot of different online communities, and when you start talking about cigars, guys, everybody's really generous. They want to share what they've been able to get their hands on with you, and that's some of the best ways when I started smoking cigars was to do a bunch of trades with people. You can find try a bunch of different stuff, and all you're spending is the money you spent to buy the cigars, but you're getting cigars in return. The community on Cigar Federation is one of the most generous communities I've ever come across, without a doubt. I mean, I've seen people sending bombs to guys for no particular reason, and it's full of stuff like Dirty Rats and cigars like that you can't really find. So, not that you should just join the community just to come and try to get some stuff from somebody, but it's a really generous community. If you're not a member, you really should come check it out. And with the apps and everything, it makes it so much easier to access. But a lot of good guys hanging out on cigarfederation.com, so you should definitely check it out if you're not already a member.
Thanks very much, everyone, for tuning in. If you haven't already, please like our video on YouTube and subscribe. The subscription on YouTube makes a big difference to us. As always, thanks very much for our podcast listeners who are listening a day later. We've had a lot of fun. This was Sharing Our Pairings, episode 32, Drew Estate Unicos pairing. And as we always say, drink better, drink less. Have a good night, guys.